Hey guys, welcome to today's class. Have fun.
Hello everyone, welcome back to our literature in English lessons, which we're taking to prepare senior secondary school students writing their West African examination. Today we're going to be looking at another non-African poem, and the one we're treating today is Birches, written by Robert Frost. So we're starting by going through the poem, then looking briefly at the background of the poet, then analysis, check out the themes, then the poetic or literary devices. So we're going to start by reading it. It's quite a lengthy poem, but it's important to read it to understand the concept. When I see botches bent to left and right across the lines of straighter darker trees, I like to think some boy's been swinging them. But swinging doesn't bend them down to stay, as ice storms do. Often you must have seen them, loaded with ice a sunny winter morning after a rain. They click upon themselves as the breeze rises and turn many-colored, as the stair cracks and creates their enamel. Soon the sun's warmth makes them shed crystal shells, shattering and avalanching on the snow crust. Such heaps of broken glass to sweep away, you would think the inner doom of heaven had fallen. They are dragged to the withered bracken by the load, and the same not to break, though once they have bowed so low for long, they never right themselves. You may see the trunk aching in the woods, yet afterward, trailing the leaves on the ground, like girls on hands and knees that throw their hair before them over their heads to dry in the sun. But I was going to say when should broken, with all a matter of fact about the ice storm. I should prefer to have some boy bend them as we went out and in to fetch the cows. Some boy too far from town to learn baseball, whose only play was what he found himself, summer or winter, and could play alone. One by one he subdued his father's trees by riding them down over and over again, until he took the stiffness out of them, and not one but hung limp, not one was left for him to conquer. He learned all there was to learn about not launching out too soon, and so not carrying the tree away, clear to the ground. He always kept his pose, to the top branches, climbing carefully, with the same pain you used to fill a cup, up to the brim and even above the brim. Then he flung outward, feet first, with a swish, kicking his way down through the air to the ground. So was I once myself a swinger of birches, and so I dream of going back to be. It's when I was am weary of consideration, and life is too much like a pathless wood, where your face burns and tickles with the cobwebs broken across it, and one eye is weeping from a twig having lashed across it open. I'd like to get away from hurt a while, and then come back to it and begin over. May no fate wilfully misunderstand me, and have grant what I wish, and snatch me away, not to return. Earth is the first place for love. I don't know where it's likely to go better. I would like to go by climbing a birch tree. and climbed black branches up in a snow-white truck towards heaven till the tree could bear no more, but dipped its top and set me down again. That would be good, both going and coming back. One could do worse than be a swinger of Birches. Now let's take a quick look at the background of the poet. Robert first was an American poet, born 1874 to 1963, and he published Birches in 1916. It was influenced by his boyhood experience of winter and summer in northern New England in America, where he would swing on birches, which is a popular game for children in the rural area of that town. The entire poem is a reflection of his childhood memories of swinging on a particular type of tree called the birch. The old title of the poem, the original title, was actually Swinging Birches, which actually seems more accurate when you think about it. So, birches is a type of tree that is found in the northern hemisphere, which is America, Europe, and the northern part of Asia. And oh yeah, so it's something that it was used to and a popular tree in his area, a very popular tree in those areas. The mood and tone of the poem is imaginative and dreaming, and the tone of the poem is conversational in the way it addresses its reader. So even though it's a long poem, it's like you haven't. It feels like he is having a conversation with someone else and describing and imagining how it is swinging on a birch tree and what snow and generally weather does to the tree. So now let's go to the analysis. In the first stanza of the poem, the poet gives us the possible explanations for the bending of the birch trees. Later we found out that the poet is also a swinger of birch trees. But here it's already imagining that they were bent by the swinging of a boar in it. But later when he acknowledged that the birches are only bent down permanently by ice storms. Despite this, the poet preferred to think that it was because a young boy was swinging and hacking the branches in order to recreate and keep a memory of his childhood. So here the poet is talking about the birch tree, is imagining at this point a bent or the hacked branches of a birch tree, and he started by talking about perhaps it's because the young boy is swinging on them, but in reality we know that that's only caused by the the by the work of ice storms and of course the burden of ice resting on the branches for so long. In stanza 2, it takes us on an imaginative journey as it describes how the tree sheds off its shells, snow, after it has been affected by the breeze, and it also describes snow and the beauty of it. It talks about how the warmth of the sun gets rid of the ice stuck on the trees and the way the snow that falls to the ground, shattering, and likened it to heaps of glasses. There is so much of snow that one could imagine that the dome of heaven had fallen. In stanza 3, he explains that even though those trees are pulled down near the ground because they've been bent for so long, because they experience winter every year and a long period of winter, they never break. Like, despite the burden of the snow and going through the ice storm, they never break. They're very resilient, but at the same time, they do not straighten back up. And at this point, the poet likened the arcing of their trunks, filled with leaves, as it trails the ground. It likened it to girls on their hands and knees, throwing their hands over their head to dry in the sun. Next, the poet takes a short break from imagining these things, and he talks about um he tries to like takes a short break from the real truth about the ice storms, and then it continues with his alternate imagination of the topic of the boy who is swinging on the birch tree. So the past stanza when you talk about okay the reality of what the birch trees actually go through during the winter, and then he go back to his first imagination about the boy swinging it. And here it talks about this boy is probably using his imagination. Talks about this boy is a young countryside boy that probably lives far from the town, so he can't learn baseball and so many other games. But like it's very convenient for him to just easily swing on a birch tree, which is very common in his environment. And this boy climbs the tree until the stiffness is worn out and there are no more trees left that could hang loosely. So like this is still more imagination on the side of the poet. Like he's imagining the boy going from birch tree to birch tree, swinging on them until like the whole hang limply. And then he climbs carefully to the top with the same frustration of filling a cup to the brim or slightly above, to the point where the water almost spill out. When he's all done, he jumps down. So this still takes more on the imagination of the poet, and this imagination continues for like the next two stanzas, where it's still imagining the boy swinging the birch trees. And then it was in stanza 7 where the poet reveals that he himself was a swinger of branches of the birch tree as a child, and he dreamt of going back to it. He dreams of going back to it as a boy because adult life can be worrisome and gets him weary. And he said it's too similar to a pathless wood where your face is tickled with cobwebs and one eye weeps from the lashing of a twig. So here, so far the poet has been imagining and explaining, but here it's a bit of like extended metaphor here, because the poet explains that climbing a birch tree is an opportunity to get away from hurt for a while and come back to it and begin all over again. He doesn't want this to be misconstrued by a fate to grant him death when he can never return to earth again, because he believes that earth is a place for love and he would like to die by climbing a birch tree. Actually, he would not like to die by climbing a birch tree, but he maintains still it would be good to enjoy the process of climbing away from hurt and returning to it, because one could do worse than be a swinger of birch trees. So this part about his desire to leave hurt but not leave it totally also comes from his interests being turned to between two ideas: the idea of leaving hurt because it's weary, and at the same time it still wants to like remain on earth, and which has the element of human escapism, which is a theme of this poem. And this will take us to the themes. The very first theme here is the theme of nature. So here the poet spoke about is a canter with these beautiful birch trees, and he also talks about snow. He talks about weather. Illustrate the poem. It's illustrate how the poet associate two different ideas while looking at the bent branches of these beautiful trees. So it's talking about the effect of ice storm on the trees, and at the same time it still talks about how he was a swinger of branches as a boy. Now the branches or the bent of the branches reminds him of a beautiful past from his childhood, and at the same time he still remembers, talks about the natural calamity or the effect of weather that transform the actual appearance of objects, in this case the birch tree. And further away from this, it goes on to describe the beauty of snow, which it compared to like when the fall to the dome of heaven falling. Next we have the theme of childhood. It's a major theme here because he has a nostalgia about his childhood when he was a swinger of the birch tree, and also the utopia world of a child is compared to the utopia world of an adult, because the poet has a personal quest to like achieve a balance between both. As a child, he had less worries. All he could think of was having fun, swinging the birch trees. And here, he's still trying to talk about, okay, at this point as an adult boy, he would rather want to like experience this the utopia world of when he was a child. So he has great feelings, and he wants the euphoria of the childhood, which is basically void of challenges and responsibilities that is facing as an adult, which you can't escape, and which is connected to the third theme, which is a human escapism, the desire to like escape reality. Like, so here, especially in stanza 7, the poet talks about getting away from earth, which he hopes to do by climbing the birch tree. So here he's trying to like escape from the hard realities of adult life, and when he admits that he's a swinger of birch trees, it is that he would like to like abandon the responsibilities of adulthood in true reality and become a boy once again, for him to experience the carefree attitude of a youth of a boy. And also he also spoke about making a heavenward journey. So why here it doesn't really mean that he wants to die. He just wants like, it feels like he wants to take a break. Like here is really divided between two words: the desire to stay and face reality, and desire to like escape for a while. But then eventually the poet admits that okay, you could do worse than imagining that by swinging and climbing the birch trees he can get away, because earth is full of love and he would like to experience that. I mean, he would rather stay in the present. And also, like I stated earlier, this poem was written in 1916, which is the middle of the First World War. So we could assume that it's probably, even though I mean the poet lived in America and none of the First World War was not fought on American soil, but Americans were participants. We could assume that the poet was tired of the turmoils of the world, the weariness of the war, and he just wanted a break. But also, it could also be on a personal level. It could be facing probably a midlife crisis, and he would just like to escape. And then it's brought on the reflection and the memory of when he was a child, a swinger of the birch tree. Let's identify some of our poetic devices in this poem. There is consonance, which is the repetition of similar sounding consonant sound in neighboring words or sometimes in the same line. We have the stanza that says, oh, it's when I am weary of considerations and life is too much like a pathless wood, where your face burns and tickles like with the cobwebs broken across it, and one eye is weeping from a twig having lashed across its open. So here is we have the consonant sound there in the letter W, and also in line 10 we have soon the sun's warmth makes them shed crystal shells. So next we have a personification, which is found in line 16, which gives a human quality to the trees with their ability of being able to correct their posture. The line says so low for long, they never right themselves. So like, I mean, a tree cannot correct its posture, it can't straighten it itself, which is in this case is a human quality, which is an example of personification used in this poem. Next we have imagery. Imagery, like I've chatted in the past, is used to make the readers perceive things involving their five senses, and it also helps you like have a vivid idea. And the example here is when the poet said, when I see birches bend to left and right to the top branches, climbing carefully, and climb back black branches up a snow white trunk. So actually this poem is imbibed in imagery. There are so many instances where there are like vivid description of the ideas in this poem. Next we have onomatopoeia in line 8, where it says they click upon themselves as the stair cracks and crazes their enamel, then in flung outward, feet first, with a swish. So, which is like a sound, basically the sound of the activity. Next, we have alliteration. Alliteration, which is the repetition of consonant sound in the same line in quick succession. So we have the sound C and the sound B in these lines, which are written here, as the stair cracks and crazes the enamel, and when I see birches bend to left and right. The next device is simile, which is used to compare something with something else to make the meaning clear to the readers. So, which is found in the line that says, years afterwards, trailing the leaves on the ground, like girls and hands and knees that threw their hair. This verse was actually talking about the birch tree being hacked over and being bent, but not breaking. And yet, in the same breath, they are likened to girls on their hands and knees that threw their hair. And also, we have hyperbole, which is a device used to exaggerate a statement for the sake of emphasis, and that is found in the line that talks about the sun's warmth, the effect of the sun's warmth on snow. It says that soon the sun's warmth makes them shed crystal shells, shattering and avalanching on the snow crust. So it has a bit of hyperbole here, because the avalanching is usually for a huge amount of snow breaking apart. But yeah, here it's used as a device to exaggerate the statement. And so that is what we have for the lesson today. By next week we'll be moving on to our prose and our dramas, so that we can quickly cover the syllabus before the examination date. Thanks again for tuning in. We appreciate you for tuning to these lessons, and we hope that you invite a friend to check out our lessons. which is going to be very useful if they're preparing for the examination. Thank you, and see you next week.
I hope the class was interesting. If you have questions, please drop them in the comment section or send us an email. We will love to help you further. See you in the next class.